Have you ever watched a woman walk out of your life and realized the silence she left behind hurts more than she ever did? Because that's the kind of silence that hits when she's gone. Not peaceful, not empty, but heavy, like something died in the air the moment the door closed. You look around and everything is still where it used to be, yet somehow nothing feels like it belongs to you anymore. A house doesn't take long to stop feeling like home. Sometimes it happens overnight. You tell yourself you're okay, that you were ready for this, that losing her wouldn't break you the way you secretly feared it would. But the truth never hits all at once. It shows up in the smallest places: the food she liked still in the fridge, the spot on the couch she always curled into, a faint trace of her perfume, and a shirt you forgot you had. It's never the big moments that break a man. It's the tiny reminders she didn't even know she left behind. And part of you still expects her. A sound at the door makes your heart jump. You wake up reaching for someone who isn't there. You cook too much food. You leave space beside you without thinking. Your body is still living in the life you had with her, long after she's gone. This is the part no one talks about. Not the fight, not the heartbreak, but the after, the quiet. The realization that she didn't just walk out of your life. She walked out of the man you were when she was in it. And now, it's just you. You and the silence. And silence doesn't lie. It shows you everything you avoided, everything you lost, everything you never said. And in that stillness, when there's nothing left to hide behind, one question finally rises: what now? And that's the moment her real journey begins, the moment you finally feel the weight of her absence. Number 1, the freedom that isn't real. While you're standing there in the quiet, trying to understand what your life has turned into, she's out there convincing herself she just stepped into something better. That's how it always begins, not with healing, but with a story. A story she needs to believe long before it ever feels true. She wakes up alone that first morning and calls it peace, even though her chest feels heavier than she thought it would. She looks around the room and tells herself she's free now, that she finally did something brave, something for herself. And she repeats it like a mantra, because the alternative is admitting she has no idea what comes next. She moves fast, almost recklessly, because speed feels like confidence when you're running from doubt. New routines, new places, new people. She'll redecorate the house, change her hair, fill her calendar, all to make the empty space feel intentional rather than accidental. And when she posts the photos, the brunches, the gym selfies, the quotes about new beginnings, the world cheers. You look so happy. You're glowing. You made the right choice. And she absorbs those words like armor. Because underneath all that noise, she feels the tremor of uncertainty, the fear that she might have traded something real for something imagined. But as long as people clap, she doesn't have to hear it. So she keeps performing. Nights out with friends, laughing louder than she feels, long conversations, hyping each other up, all of them pretending they're stronger than their wounds. She gets attention from men again, quick compliments, thirsty messages, the kind of interest that feels flattering but never familiar. For a while, it gives her a high, not because these men see her, but because they don't. Their attention is simple, shallow, easy to digest. It lets her pretend she's desirable without having to be vulnerable. But deep down, she knows none of them ask about her day the way you did. None of them read her moods the way you could. None of them see past the surface. Still, she plays along, because novelty feels like growth when you're terrified of standing still. She tells herself she's finding happiness, but what she's really finding is distraction. She mistakes motion for progress, noise for healing, attention for affection, and little by little, the rush starts to fade. The late nights feel repetitive. The compliments lose their power. The outings begin to feel like obligations, and she starts to sense it, that quiet, sinking truth that always shows up once the excitement dies down. The truth that the life she walked toward isn't as solid as the one she walked away from, and though she won't admit it yet, even to herself, the illusion is already cracking. Number 2, cracks in her new life. But illusions never last as long as she hopes. And the first cracks always show up quietly. Not in dramatic ways, not in tears or breakdowns, just in small, uncomfortable moments she tries to ignore. It begins the night she goes on her first real date, the one she secretly hopes will validate everything she told herself about leaving. She gets dressed carefully, looks in the mirror a little too long, and forces that confident smile she practiced in her new freedom. The guy looks good. He's charming enough, says all the right lines, and she laughs at his jokes because that's what she's supposed to do. But the whole time, something in her chest feels off, like she's trying to hold a shape that doesn't fit anymore. He doesn't know her, not really. He doesn't notice the tiny things, the way her voice softens when she's unsure, the way she tucks her hair behind her ear when she's nervous, the way she orders certain foods because of memories tied to them. He's meeting the surface of her, not the soul of her. And when he smiles across the table, she feels the weight of that difference. For the first time, she realizes the kind of connection she had with you doesn't appear instantly with someone new, and may never appear again in the same way, but she won't admit that. Not yet. So she pushes forward. More dates, more conversations, more pretending this new world feels natural. But it doesn't. The compliments from strangers feel lighter, emptier. The attention feels temporary. The flirting feels performative, and slowly, quietly. She starts to compare without meaning to, not with intention, but instinct. The way you listened, the way you paid attention, the way you cared even on your worst days. She told herself for so long that you didn't do enough. But out here, in this new reality, enough starts to look different, and with every comparison she never meant to make. Another crack appears in her story. She notices how quickly men try to escalate things, how shallow the conversations are, how nobody asks about her dreams, her fears, her history, how nobody looks at her the way you used to, not perfectly, but honestly. And even though she keeps smiling, keeps posting, keeps pretending she's thriving, she feels something hollow opening inside her, a subtle loneliness that grows louder every time she comes home to an empty space she swore she wanted. She tells herself it's just part of the process, just adjustment, just unfamiliar territory. But deep down, she feels it. The quiet realization she tries to bury under distractions. The freedom she was chasing doesn't feel like freedom anymore. It feels like floating without direction. And the story she built to justify leaving isn't holding together the way she hoped, because this is where the illusion begins to break. And if this truth hit you somewhere deep, brother, take a moment to do me a small favor. Hit like, subscribe, and share this message. Your simple action can help more people who are struggling with this issue find the content they need. Thank you for being a part of this. Number 3. The truth behind her glow. Cracks never stay cracks for long. Sooner or later, they widen, they spread. They turn into something she can't tape over with laughter, attention, or carefully curated posts. And this usually happens months down the line around the 4th, the 6th, maybe the 8th, when the excitement has burned out and all the distractions she used to outrun the truth begin losing their shine. That's when the unraveling begins, slow but brutal, like a thread pulled from a sweater until the whole thing comes apart in her hands. It starts with exhaustion, not the physical kind, but the emotional kind, the constant performing, the pretending, the chasing of validation she used to think was empowerment. It starts wearing her down. Nights out feel repetitive. Conversations feel scripted. The men who once felt interesting now feel predictable. Everything she once called freedom starts to look more like noise. And underneath that noise, the quiet she ran from begins to return. Except now it's louder. She starts to notice things she never expected to miss. The stability, the predictability, the safety, The comfort of being known, not praised, not entertained, but understood. She used to take that for granted, used to downplay what it meant to have someone who remembered her smallest details. Now those details echo in her mind like a memory she didn't realize she cared about until it was gone. Her friends stop cheering as loudly. Their lives move on. Their energy shifts, and slowly she realizes she's not the center of anyone's story anymore. The dating attention dips. The messages slow. The novelty fades. And she's left with the version of herself she hasn't taken the time to face, the one sitting alone in bed at midnight, scrolling through her own photos, trying to recognize the woman who used to feel so sure. She doesn't cry yet. She doesn't break. But she feels it coming, that quiet panic rising in her chest, the kind you can't explain or escape. Because somewhere in that stillness, she starts to understand a truth she never wanted to touch. Leaving didn't fix what she thought it would fix. The problems she blamed on the relationship didn't disappear. They followed her. They always do. And now, there's no one left to blame. This is the beginning of the unraveling, the moment she realizes the life she thought she was stepping into isn't waiting for her. It never was. Number 4. The regret begins. The unraveling never ends quietly. It always leads somewhere darker. Heavier, a point where the weight of her own choices finally becomes too much to carry. And this moment rarely comes in public. It doesn't happen in front of her friends or on the nights she's dressed up, laughing louder than she feels. No, it comes in silence, in stillness, in the hours she used to fill with noise. And it almost always hits late at night, when the world is asleep and she can't hide from herself anymore. It starts as a whisper, a question she tried to bury. What have I done? But whispers don't stay. Whispers for long. They grow. They echo. They turn into that tight feeling in her chest she can't breathe past. She lies in bed staring at the ceiling, scrolling through old text threads she told herself didn't matter anymore, replaying moments she swore she forgot. She doesn't miss the arguments or the tension. She misses the presence, the familiarity, the certainty of having someone who cared even on days they didn't know how to show it perfectly. And then comes the Sunday night loneliness, the kind that hits with no warning. The kids asleep or away, the house too quiet, the air too still, the realization spreading through her like cold water. She has no one to turn to anymore. No one who knows her enough to read the tone in her voice. No one who cares enough to ask the right questions. No one who sees her the way you once did, even when things were falling apart. This is the moment she reaches for her phone, the moment she hovers over your name, debating whether to send a message she knows she shouldn't send. Hey, how are you? Or worse, I was just thinking about us. Sometimes the message comes out angry, blaming, emotional. Other times, it's soft, nostalgic, almost apologetic, but they all mean the same thing. The foundation she stood on when she left is gone, and she's sinking. She won't admit regret outright, not yet. Pride won't let her. Fear won't let her. But the breaking point isn't about confession. It's about recognition. And in that quiet, shaking moment, at 100 or 200 away, Menahem, she finally recognizes what she's been running from. She didn't walk into a better life. She walked into a lonelier one. This is the night she realizes the story she built around her freedom no longer protects her, it betrays her. Number 5. She sees what she lost, but breaking is only the beginning. The real impact comes afterward, when the dust settles and she finally has to look at herself without the shield of anger, freedom, or other people's cheering. This is the stage she never prepared for, the part of the journey no one warned her about. Because once the late-night messages fade and the adrenaline of regret wears off, she's left standing in front of a truth she can't outrun. She didn't just lose you, she lost the version of herself that only existed with you. It starts subtly. She looks in the mirror and barely recognizes the woman staring back. Not because she's changed physically, but because something softer, something grounded, is gone. She used to have someone to share her fears with, someone who saw her at her worst and stayed anyway. Now, every fear bounces back at her like an echo in an empty room. And she starts realizing that independence feels different when it isn't chosen from strength, but forced by circumstance. Her friends, the same ones who told her she'd thrive, begin to drift. Not because they don't care, but because life keeps moving for them. Their problems feel bigger than the story she's trying to rewrite. Their patience thins, their interest fades, and she begins to feel something she never expected to feel after leaving invisible. Not empowered, not liberated, just unnoticed. The dating world that once felt exciting now feels cold, predictable, transactional. Every man she meets wants a simplified version of her, the fun parts, the pretty parts, the easy parts. But the real her, the complicated her, the mother, the woman with history, with scars, with needs, they don't want that. Or if they do, they don't stay long enough to prove it. And slowly, painfully, she begins to see how rare it was to have someone who knew all of her and didn't run. This is where the bitterness grows. Not toward you, not really, but toward herself. For believing the fantasy. For thinking the world would bend to her expectations. For assuming connection was replaceable. Comfort was guaranteed. And loyalty was something she could find anywhere she decided to look. She starts to see the pattern she kept denying. She didn't fix the emptiness by leaving. She amplified it, and in that realization, the mirror finally turns. She sees her part, her choices, her illusions, her wounds she carried into the marriage and then carried out of it. And she realizes something devastatingly simple. She wasn't running from you. She was running from herself. Here's the part she never saw coming while she was busy trying to outrun the pieces of herself. You were quietly rebuilding yours. Not dramatically, not loudly, just slowly, steadily, like a man who finally got tired of bleeding and decided he was worth healing. One day, the mornings didn't feel so heavy. One night, the silence didn't hurt as much. And somewhere in between all the hurt you carried, you found something she never expected you to find: peace. You didn't become colder. You didn't become harder. You became clearer. And when she eventually looks your way, whether through a photo, a memory, or the children mentioning your name, she sees it. She sees a man she doesn't recognize anymore, not because you changed into someone else, but because you finally became the man you were always capable of being. The man she couldn't see through her own confusion. And that's the truth she has to live with now. You didn't get better after her. You got better without her. The life she thought she'd find on the other side of leaving. It happened, just not for her. For you, because some endings break you, but the right ones rebuild you into someone you were meant to become all along. If you're still picking up your pieces, brother, stay here. Listen. Breathe. We walk this part together, and when you're ready, I'll show you what comes next. Thank you for being here. Brother, every word we share here is a reminder that calm doesn't mean weak, and silence doesn't mean lost. If this resonated with you, stay a while. Reflect. Listen. Let it settle. We're building something real, a quiet brotherhood built on truth, not noise. See you in the next video, where we keep walking this path together.